Oh, man, we have a beautiful show here today, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we're going to do something new today. I'm going to bring in my good friend, George Lesso. George Lesso, you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
How you doing, man? How you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Good, anytime, man. And George, why don't you go ahead and tell us what we're going to be doing today. Ladies and gentlemen, he will be doing introducing the interview as we speak. And what are we going to be doing today, George?
Hello, everybody, old school fans. I'm here with my friend Greg, and we're going to be interviewing WWF legend and Hall of Famer, former two-time Intercontinental Champion, Tito Santana.
That's wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, Tito Santana. Yes, as there's a round of applause. So let's go get him in right here. Let's get him in.
Tito, sir?
Yes.
This Saturday, you're going to be coming to Houston, Texas. All the fans are excited to see you. Are you excited about coming to Houston, seeing all your fans? It'll be at the Pasadena, Texas, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., August 31st, presented by Clutch City Productions at the Pasadena Convention Center.
Yes, I'm really looking forward. It's been a while since I've been to Houston for anything related to professional wrestling, and I know I have a lot of great fans there in the Houston area, and I'm really looking forward to meeting them. Conventions like this are so much better because you are able to sit around and talk to the fans and sign autographs and take pictures with them, and and a lot of times they bring up stories that I had forgotten about it, and a lot of the fans know more about my career than I can remember, and it's always so nice to hear. And when they thank me for the good times that I gave them on television, it feels really good.
I was telling you earlier how my mother had a crush on you when I was a kid, and she wanted me to grow my hair just like yours because it's long and curly.
Well, I don't have long hair anymore.
No.
I'm in the classroom as a teacher now, and eventually I clipped it a little bit at a time, and now I guess I look like a school teacher.
Oh,
that would be fitting.
All right, I'll start with my first question. We talked about this earlier, but we'll talk about it on air. What was it like working with The Undertaker, and what was it like beating him 1-2-3 in Spain?
Well, The Undertaker, came in and took the WWF by storm. God, he's been there longer than anybody. And for me to wrestle The Undertaker, we wrestled each other. I believe it was in 1988 in Barcelona, Spain. It's where they had the basketball games. A brand new stadium, and we sold it out. Him and I were the main event, and it was just amazing. And to me, I was over with all the Hispanics. It didn't make any difference if it was in Puerto Rico, if I was in Spain, if I was in California, if I was in Houston. The Hispanics got behind me, and it was just a great feeling the way that the fans responded to me in Barcelona. They gave me the key to the city, and they really, made a big deal of me being in town. And the night that I beat The Undertaker, it was just a great feeling, and something that I'll never forget.
That's awesome. Hey, Tito, this is Greg Skelly. I was going to ask you, growing up in the 80s, I know it was a different time with different humor and obviously a heel work, but did you or any of the other guys ever take offense to some of the things that were said by, like, Bobby Heenan and Jesse Ventura, with, like, the Chico Santana and all that other stuff, or was that all just tongue-in-cheek, everybody just knew it was just part of the characters?
Well, a lot of the fans don't know this, but Bobby Heenan and Jesse the Body were over so big, as heels, and whenever they really, really cared for you, they put you down, because the more those guys put you down, the more the people would get PO'd at them and help you get over. It took me a while to realize that, I'd get to the towns and the wrestling fans were hollering, "Hey, Chico!" And, it kind of would tick me off at first, and then I realized, man, they're calling me Chico because, that's what Jesse the Body calls me. And
right.
It took me a while, but it's professional wrestling has always been a big fraternity, and we don't hate each other outside of the ring, we all had families, and we didn't go out there to kill each other, but we did go out and we competed, and back then I believe it was the wrestling itself was a whole lot better than what it is now, and people believed in professional wrestling back then.
Yeah, I agree. A lot better.
Speaking of the word, so isn't it true you helped Razor Ramon come up with his name, Ramon?
Yeah. 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 As a matter of fact, it's I don't know. I shouldn't even be talking about this, but I was in the restroom, going to the number one, and I'm standing there in the urinal, and Razor comes and he says, "Hey, Tito, I need to come up with a name that sounds that rhymes with
Razor."
With Razor." And I said right away, I said Ramon, and he took off running, and that's what it was, Razor Ramon.
That's it. You made a star.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rest was history. Well, and that kind of goes with the fraternity, because we were speaking a little bit off air on this, and Dino Bravo, as you mentioned, helped you kind of fine tune your character at the Arriba and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's so much to learn, like back then it was very important to be able to speak, be able to do interviews, we weren't told what to say. We just created our own little short stories, whenever did interviews, and, we built them up in 4-week cycles, and at the end, we made it sound like we were ready to kill each other, and Dino really was ahead, his career was ahead of mine, and he says, Tito, he says, you have to come up with something that's catchy. And we were doing interviews in Minnesota, and he says, you need to start. What if you start hollering Arriba after your interview? And that's what I started doing. I'd finish an interview and I'd pump my fist up and I'd go Arriba, and that all of a sudden, wherever I went, people would see me, and that's the first thing they would say to me.
Yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday. Every single promo you cut ended with that, and the fans ate it up.
Yeah, one of my favorite pay-per-views was Survivor Series 1990, and you were in the main event, and you teamed with Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. What was it like teaming with Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior?
Well, it was unbelievable. Those were two of the hottest baby faces in the country, and for them to put me, and team me up with them, it kind of elevated me, to their level. I just wish that Vince had seen the ability that I had, and would have given me a bigger sustained push, because I had so much fans, and I would tell Vince, I said, Vince, you're not using me to the most to my potential, and I still think that I had so many fans that I could have been a good world champion if you would have given me the opportunity. I just never got it.
100%. Wow. And I bet you if you were wrestling today, you'd be definitely a multi-time world champion.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, well, they pass the belt around quite a bit nowadays. It's not like back in your day where when you held the Intercontinental Championship, that was a big deal. They didn't pass that thing around like a peace pipe, I mean, that was a big deal. Yeah,
well, I believe that the Intercontinental Champion was, at some point, meant as much as the world belt. I mean, Hogan was Hogan was the man, and the only place that would sell out was when Hogan was the main event. And Greg the Hammer Valentine and myself, we had a hot feud, and we were selling out big arenas without Hogan in the card, us as main event, and that's why I knew that I just had so many fans that were behind me, and a lot of more things could have been done, but they weren't, and I'm not going to hold any grudges or anything. I just think that the opportunity for me was there, and they just didn't take advantage of it.
Yeah, I would concur with that. I was going to ask you, what would you consider, the pinnacle, the highlight of your career? I mean, when you look back at your long storied career, what moment do you look back and go, that was my moment? That was the Tito Santana moment.
Probably after I like I said, Greg the Hammer Valentine and myself, we had the longest feud in the history of the WWF back then, and now there's no longevity to their feuds. So they change from month to month. But that feud was hot. I mean, we had all kinds of return matches. Hogan would have one or two return matches, and then they'd sell out the first time, and then they'd drop in half, and then they would keep dropping, and then he'd get another opponent. Well, Greg and I mean, we wrestled each other for a year and a half, and we had lumberjack matches, tape fizz matches, all kind no time limit matches, because we went time limit in Madison Square Garden, and they had a curfew, and we hit the curfew, and then we came back with a no time limit, and there's about 6 or 7 different kind of gimmick matches that we ended up having, and we finished it with the cage match in Baltimore, and the night that I took the belt back, I mean, God, talk about a pop, and we were the main event in Baltimore, and the place was completely sold out, and the fans, it was in a cage match, and the fans went crazy.
Yeah, that was an awesome moment.
Tito, what was the deal with the El Matador character? Kind of repackaged you and introduced you to the El Matador. Were there plans for you to eventually become WWF champion from that gimmick?
I think so. They were, the way they talked, the way Vince talked, they were going to give me another push, and out of the Matador, I actually went to north of San Diego to Mexico and Tijuana, and I trained to be a Matador. They rented the whole stadium for me, and they trained me how to become a Matador, and I spent some time there.
I still remember those promos where they cut.
Yeah. I mean, they were great promos, and everything was all set up, and I was supposed to come out with a big angle with the $1 Million Man. Ted DiBiase had gone to Mexico, and they had been setting up an angle for me and him to go, and then all of a sudden, there's no angle with me and DiBiase, and I just thought that I was getting over as a Matador. I was getting the Matador gimmick, and then I second-guessed myself, and I said, am I doing something wrong? And, I thought I was doing the best possible thing that I could do as a Matador, but it was Vince's idea. He just veered and went somewhere else, and George the Animal Steele told me that, it was supposed to be an angle with me and the $1 Million Man, and it ended up becoming an angle with George the Animal Steele and the $1 Million Man. So they just dropped me like a bad habit, and I knew that they weren't going to do anything with me. That's why, I had been on the road for so many years, and I had 3 sons at home, and I just said to myself, well, they're not going to treat me any better than this. I had made my money, and I had saved my money, and I was going to survive without wrestling, and I had an education, and I said, well, I'm out of here. I said, I'm not going to be, hitting the road and just breaking even. So I just, retired. I gave him my notice.
Right, and then you did some commentary for him, correct?
Yeah, I came back and did a commentary for about a year, in Spanish commentary, and I replaced got Hugo Savinovich, who had some kind of legal problems, and they let him go for a year, and he straightened up his problems, and Vince took him back, and I knew they were only going to keep two of us, and I was the one that I wasn't real close to Carlitos, the main guy. Him and Hugo were really, really good friends, and I knew that I was the odd man out, and they told me that they didn't need me anymore, so that was fine with me.
Wow, yeah, that seems like a bonehead move, though. Put aside an established world-known star for a fringe commentator. Doesn't I don't want to second guess Vince. Obviously, he's been quite successful in the business, but that's a puzzler.
Well, I think when Carlos and I, we were, he was the main guy, and I was doing the color with him, and when we hang out, of course, everybody knew who I was, so I'd be getting all the attention, and I think he got a little jealous, and he was the man. He was a great commentator. So he probably, from what I hear, a source told me that he used to knock me, and a lot of politics, and that's what happened there.
Well, it's a job. Coworkers, politics, kind of goes hand in hand, huh?
That's right.
What was it like working with Shawn at WrestleMania 8, and how did you feel about him inducting you in the Hall of Fame?
I thought it was, I learned some things about Shawn. I never knew that they would go down the road and talk that, about them wanting the Tito thing. I never knew about the Tito thing, that him and Razor Ramon and the little group that they used to hang out with. I wasn't part of the group. I had my own friends that I used to travel with. But, Shawn got over so big. I mean, he had so much potential. And for him to say the things that he said about me, to me, they were, it was a shock. I mean, I never expected him to put me over as much as he did.
And he sounded like he was breaking down on stage, so he had really good feelings for you.
Yeah. I mean, look at the career that he ended up having.
Right.
Everybody noticed the potential that he had, and he didn't let anybody down.
No, he did
wrestling since the '80s. Together, I remember a SummerSlam '89 match where it was the Rockers against your team.
Yeah. I mean, they were great talent, him and Marty. I mean, you really can't say anything bad. It was kind of sad when they split him up, and Marty just got dropped like a bad habit, and Shawn went on to have a great career.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sometimes happens, though. But sometimes good things come. When Tom Zink bolted, they were planning on putting the belts on him and Martel, and then they kind of were scrambling around. And really got lucky that you were available to work the program and team with Martel, and you guys had quite a team with Strikeforce. I mean, you went straight to the championship, and as I recall, didn't they take the belts off you because Martel's wife got sick or something of that nature? Yeah,
I mean that's what I understood. He told me his wife was had some kind of problems, and I said, Rick, you can hire. We're doing so well that you could hire a full-time nurse. For your wife. He said, no, Tito, I have to be there. And I respected him for that. His wife was more important than money. And God, I mean, how can you not respect that?
Yeah, that's a noble thing. Yeah, how could you not? I agree.
I mean, it wasn't good for me, but I knew I would have done the same thing.
Right. Now, was the plan for you guys to have a longer reign, or was it always the plan if Demolition got over to put the belts on them?
I think we had gotten over so big, so quick that I think we were going to hold those belts for a while, and if we would have dropped the belts, we would have had a big feud, and we would have been chasing them for a while.
Right. Yeah, that's what it appeared. When you guys won the belts, they had Bruno on there, praising you guys, and I mean, I realize it's kayfabe and all that on, on TV, but they really went out of their way to hype the team, and it worked. You guys were over, literally like the first match I saw you guys team, and you guys were just crazy over the top teams, immediately. So I had the feel that you guys were going to be on for at least, from Mania to a Mania, but things happen, obviously, things change, and life.
Yeah. Are you guys there?
You worked a little bit for ECW. What was that like?
I'm sorry, you were cutting off. What was the question again?
What was it like working for ECW?
I went and I had they had a big tournament, and I ended up wrestling five times in one night. It was a long night, and I ended up winning the world title in the tournament. Ended up beating Don Morocco. He was the world champion. And but I didn't like the way things were run there, from what I saw. And I just never went back. I won the title, and I just conceded the title.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of ECW myself, and I often wondered how many old school guys really were into it, because it seemed like you said, Snuka was there, Morocco, you, and none of you old school guys who came up through the craft of professional wrestling seemed to really be all into that product that they were producing out there.
Yeah, it was a little too wild for me, and just the leadership. I just didn't. There were some things going on that I just didn't agree with, and I just didn't want to be part of it.
Well, Tito, what was it like working with Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth?
What was the question again?
What was it like with the Macho Man Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth?
Well, Macho Man, I mean, God bless his soul. He turned out to be a great wrestler, and I do believe that the reason that he got as big as he did was because of Miss Elizabeth. Because when Randy got to New York, I wrestled him without Miss Elizabeth before he got his manager, and he wasn't getting over it at all. I mean, we'd wrestle and you could hear a pin drop, and he learned quite a bit, real quick, but it was not until they teamed him up. They made the big deal when all the managers would come out and they were scouting him and they all wanted him, and all of a sudden here comes this gorgeous woman, all decked out, that becomes his manager, and the way he treated her, really used to upset the fans, and I mean the whole package worked.
Yeah, they integrated her into pretty much all of his early storylines. I think a lot of people lose sight of that. George Animal Steel, she was as big of a part of that as either of them, and same with the Honky Tonk Man.
Yep. Yeah, well, back then, that's what it all was, It was all about, it was like soap operas, and the soap operas would last more than a month. And, they'd last for long periods of time, and the harder the soap opera was, the longer the feud would last.
Right. Now, do you think that's part of the problem with more recent years in wrestling? Was it seemed like you guys having only 2, 3, and 4 pay-per-views got like the entire year really to work your programs and get the most out of your feuds with each other and really perfect your feuds, whereas now it just gets the feeling that every month it's just a weekly commercial for the upcoming pay-per-view at the end of the month.
Yeah, the problem is they have so many pay-per-views now. Back then we had 4 pay-per-views. Now they have so many pay-per-views, you can only go from month to month, just about. It's not like you can carry, a pay-per-view. Like we had a pay-per-view, and then you might have had Survivor Series, which has nothing to do with feuds. And what was the other? Then there was another one that we had on Thanksgiving. We had a...
that was a Survivor Series, yeah.
It was a Survivor Series, and then King of the Ring. The Royal Rumble, which nothing, it was all about the Royal Rumble. That was the main event. And so you could carry your feud on the outside, and that's why they kept them on the outside, because there was only 4 pay-per-views, and we had wrestling matches. We were wrestling 350 days a year. So, we had to keep the feuds alive on the outside to draw, because we got paid strictly on the crowds back then.
George?
Yes.
You had the next question?
Yes, Tito, what was it like working with Andre the Giant?
Andre and I became real good friends. Andre was he was the man, and if he liked you, he liked you, and if he didn't like you, he didn't like, he'd let you know. I was very lucky that he liked me. I played a lot of cribbage or gin rummy with him, and I met Andre in 1977. I had a 1975 Granada, and I picked him up at the airport, and as a matter of fact, I picked him and David Von Erich at the Atlanta airport. I was wrestling in Atlanta, and I was just a rookie and just getting started, so they gave me the assignment to pick him up and take him to the town, and we became friends. As a matter of fact, he broke the seat in my car. He was in the front seat, and David Von Erich was squashed in the back, and I ended up getting the bigger car. And whenever Andre was in town, he always travels with me. I let him sleep in my apartment in my bed one time, and I snuck in there, and it was funny because his legs were hanging off the bed.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure that was commonplace for him.
Yeah.
Now you got this event coming up here in Houston at the Fan Expo that George is going to be in attendance. Do you do a lot of these, or is this a pretty rare appearance for you?
I do probably a half a dozen of these a year. I really look forward to making those appearances and getting to meet some people. I'm gonna get to meet George's mother, who was in love with me, and there's so many fans, so many guys that come and tell me that their sisters or their mother was in love with me, and I want to, it's nice when you can put a face, and we can talk about it, and you get to talk to the fans, and share moments like that, and they're worth $1 million.
Do you look forward to seeing Greg the Hammer Valentine and some of the other guys you work with, like Brutus the Barber Beefcake, this Saturday?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, wrestling is a fraternity, and these are opportunities that we don't get to see each other that much anymore. And when we do, we like to hang out, and we just sit around and we laugh. I mean, we talk about old memories and stories that happened to us on the road, and we sit around and laugh, and just we could talk for hours and not repeat ourselves. I mean, it's unbelievable what we went through. It was a great experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Do you believe wrestling fans are some of the most loyal fans in the world?
I believe the wrestling fan is the best fan of anything, and that's what got me interested in. I could not, when I first started in 1977, I broke in Florida, and my first live match that I went to was in Tampa, Florida, and I was just starting training, working out with Hiro Matsuda, and I went to the match, and I stuck my head outside to watch the fans, and I could not believe it, and I still hadn't been smart enough to wrestling. I thought it was totally on the up and up, and for the most part, it was mostly on the up and up, but not totally. And there was an old lady in the front row that had a cane and was hitting the wrestlers' heels. I thought that was part of the show. I didn't realize it. until later on, I figured out, and they told me that it wasn't part of the show. It's just, I couldn't believe the wrestling fans. You know, if they liked you, they loved you, and if they hated you, they'd let you know.
Oh yeah.
You know, you can see that we have a page. Greg and I and a few others run a page with almost 30,000 people on there. They're killing each other every day verbally. You know, about old school wrestling. If you don't like their favorites, they're going to bash you, and it's crazy. Like, wrestling fans will always be wrestling fans.
That's right.
Yeah, and the glories of the golden era that you're a part of still live on. Everybody still fondly looks back at your era, and nothing just comes of that one.
You know, I really, the wrestling fan that was around in my era, you know, what they call the Legends era, I haven't had somebody come up to me that hasn't told me that, you know, wrestling was at its best in our era. You know, they all preferred our type of wrestling, you know, back then. Now it's a TV show. Now it's total entertainment. They tell you what to say. You know, it's a different ball game. You know, but you know, it's successful. You know, times have changed.
Yeah,
Like in the 80s, I could tell you which wrestler beat which wrestler for the title. From 80s up until maybe the mid-90s, maybe 97, I personally lost track. But now I can't even tell you who was Intercontinental Champion 6 months ago.
Right. I'm gonna say, like, I don't watch it, so I couldn't tell you who's champion and who's wrestling and, you know, who's there and who's not.
Well, you know, you're one of many legends I've talked to that seem to not watch the current product, and I think that kind of speaks volumes of the current product. You know, it's not quite the craft that you guys practiced back in your day. You know, it's not the craft of Mid-Atlantic and WWF and all that. You know.
Right. I mean, you know, there was a lot of psychology to our matches. You know, we had a lot of ring psychology, and psychology has no part in today's wrestling. You know, I try to watch it sometimes, and I see, well, you know, the guy's doing a good job selling the baby face. I'm going to see how he's going to get out of it, and you know, they don't have a clue. You know, they don't have a clue on how to get, you know, a good professional wrestling the way we learned it. We knew that the fans wanted to be part of the show. The fans paid money to be able to go out there and scream and holler, and so we were able to control the fans, the emotion of the fan. You know, we had the magic wand. You know, we brought the fans up, we brought the fans down when we wanted them, and you know, we made him think that it was them that was doing it, but it was us that was doing it in the ring. You know, and the better you were, the better wrestler you were.
You guys were storytellers. That's you know what I try to get through to a lot of younger fans was you guys had ring psychology. George will confirm this. I chirp on this all the time. Ring psychology, and you guys told a story in the ring, and that's the big difference.
Right, and every fan, you know, like what we did in one town might not work in another town, and you have to figure it out in a hurry.
Yeah,
you know,
on the spot.
Mr. Fuji used to tell me, he says, you got to listen to the fans. They tell you what they want. You know, they listen to the fans. You know, they tell you what they want, and you know, that's figuring out the psychology of the match. You know, it took not too many people, and even back then, you know, there was a few that you could have been in the business for 30 years and still didn't get that part.
Right.
You know, I know you said you don't follow the product. I don't know if you follow, like, the current wrestling news, but were you aware that the Ultimate Warrior and the WWE fixed their problem? Now he's not working with them, but he's going to be in their upcoming video game. And how do you feel about that they, you know, kind of mend the fence?
Well, I just heard about it not so long ago. I think they brought the Ultimate Warrior and other legends, because I hear that, you know, those are the ones that sell, you know, the legends, you know, and I mean, you can say whatever you want about the Ultimate Warrior, but the guy was over.
The whole thing with would you how would you characterize how well you legends who built the WWE are treated by the current product? It seems almost like 3 or 4 guys are treated extremely well, and then the rest of you are either forgotten or kind of just dumped on.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that Vince would do more, and make me a few more bucks than he does. I don't know if I have heat with them or what, but I think that there's, a lot of guys. I think if you would make a video or a DVD of the best of Tito Santana, I believe it would sell. But there's not much being made. He picks and chooses who he wants. It's convinced. It's all about money. So I mean, they were not in good terms, Vince and Ultimate Warrior. But Vince sees a money opportunity there. So it's all about money for him.
I mean, it took him even 15 years to acknowledge the Macho Man. I think around 2009. They made a DVD, and Macho Man and Hulk Hogan were 2 of the biggest ones by the early 90s. So,
yeah,
he definitely picks and chooses. I think a lot of it is whatever he feels can help him best market his current product, So he doesn't seem to go too far back. If you weren't big in the late 90s, it seems like he just doesn't have any interest because he can't really tie it into his current product.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it just seems to be a shame because, without you guys, wrestling wouldn't have been a mainstream success. It wouldn't have been the big business that it became. You guys literally took this and took it to a whole different level, different level.
We were the pioneers. I mean, God, we used to go to the big stadiums that only had 1,000 people in California. He almost stopped going to California because he kept losing, and then all of a sudden, after about a year, it took off. A lot of people think it was overnight. It wasn't overnight. It took us being on the road and pounding the road and working our butts off in front of very little crowds, and all of a sudden it took off.
Yeah, I can attest to that. The crowds out here in California in 84, 85 were sparse. There's a few good shows, but I'm sure that's pretty commonplace. But by 86, 87, you guys were just blowing up. I mean, Arco Arena, the Cow Palace out in Fresno, I've seen you guys all over the state, and you guys were selling out. And it didn't matter if Hulk Hogan was on the card or not out here by this point. You guys as a whole were selling out. It didn't matter. It could be Honky Tonk versus Macho, you versus Dino. I mean, it was selling out.
Yes, it was.
It was. And, I'd like to take this time now because I know we're getting short on time here. You've already tripled your estimate of the free time you had, which I want to just tell you I appreciate immensely. I know our fans are going to appreciate it immensely. And I want to thank DJ as well. It's been an honor talking with you, and it's been an honor to be a fan of yours for many, many years.
And thank you very much, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to the fans, and I'm looking forward to coming down there on Saturday and hopefully meeting a lot of the fans and getting to talk about some of the memories that they have and reminisce and let me thank them in person, for being my fan, because I always tell the same story. If it wasn't for the fans, none of us would be. There wouldn't be any legends.
Yeah, we'll all be there to see you. And also want to give a special thanks to Gilbert from Clutch City Productions. He made all this possible. Our great interview with Tito Santana. By far, this is the best interview that I have been a part of. And we're going to play it for all of our fans. So everybody come out this Saturday, August 31st, at the Pasadena Convention Center from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. to meet Tito Santana and other WWF former legends, or former WWF wrestlers. Yeah. They're going to be legends forever. So.
Most definitely. And I will also be in attendance, DJ Malone, filming. So if you guys need to see me, just come to the Pasadena Convention Center. I'll be there, along with Tito Santana.
Tito, I wanted to ask you, how do you grade our wrestling knowledge?
What's that?
How do you grade our wrestling knowledge?
You guys know what you're talking about, man. You know the history. It's unbelievable to me how now that I'm a school teacher, I see some kids who have disabilities, learning disabilities that get into wrestling, and it amazes me how they know kids with disabilities, how they can tell you when I won the title the first time, who I lost it to, and they give you dates. I mean, the wrestling fan is unbelievable, and it's so good to see a fan who has learning disabilities that the love that they have for you and for the sport comes across, so sincere. It's got no value. It's worth, a lot to us. And I'm so grateful for just being able to share moments with all kinds of wrestling fans, not only the learning disabled, but just a true wrestling fan that takes the time to remember, and if somebody remembers a date, it's because it made an impact in their life, and it's so important to me.
I do have a cousin. His name is Dino in Chicago, and he's a little bit older than me, and he does have a learning disability. But anything about the WWF, he could tell you. From the time he was a little boy, up until now. Like I'm his favorite cousin because I watch wrestling. He calls me all the time. So I'll be excited. I'm going to get an autograph from you.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, to me, that's amazing. For for us to bring joy to all walks of life. To me, it makes it all worthwhile.
Like my cousin Dino, when Macho Man died, he called me crying, and he goes, "You won't believe what happened." And of course, I already knew. And he said Macho Man died, and he's so emotionally attached to pro wrestling, like so many of us are. And despite his disability, pro wrestling to him is number one, and he could tell you anything about it.
Right.
Most definitely. Tito, I wanted to ask you this. Had you had a chance to check out the commercial promo?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm the guy that made the commercial promo.
Yeah, I'm not too computer literate, so I don't go in and out with the computers, that easy.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, he did a great job. He did a nice promo with you and your music and you wrestling. He did an excellent job.
Maybe
when we're there, I can show it to you.
Yeah, bring your iPad and show it to me.
Yeah, you'll see him on the show Saturday. I'll definitely introduce you to him.
Okay.
All right,
okay,
sir.
guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Anytime, man.
Have a good night.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Tito Santana, and give a round of applause for him. I really do appreciate everybody for coming through and supporting and listening. Ed, man, I really do appreciate you, man, on the crew. George, you been a great guy. I really do appreciate you for putting this together, and it was a wonderful interview.
And you as well. I look forward to seeing you on Saturday. We'll do some good things.
Most definitely. You want to do one more promo before we head out the door?
Sure. Greg, are you still there?
I think he hung up.
Who's Greg?
Yeah, he hung up.
Okay. All right, guys. Everybody, this Saturday, we're gonna have many legends in town in Houston, Texas. It's presented by Clutch City Productions. It's the Sports Memorabilia and Celebrity Super Show, August 31st from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Some of the names that will be there will be Tito Santana, of course, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, X-Pac, Greg the Ham Valentine, and Brutus and Barbara Beefcake, and many other celebrities and athletes as well.